All right, so last week we did cultivating the soul, and we have our soil. I'm just going to kind of do a review. A couple of you guys were not here last week, but we had hard soil that we tilled up with our garden tools, and we had, what else did we have? Oh, we had weeds that we had to pluck, which was our sin in our lives that we needed to pluck, and then we had our nice fertile soil that we have in here, because when we are unloved, we need love. I've already got my hands dirty this morning. And when we decided that cultivating is not always going to feel good, because it's whenever you take a definition of tillage, it is the mechanical agitation of overturning and stirring and all that stuff. So we decided that cultivating isn't always going to feel good, and I gave you an example of that with the Israelites whenever they were in slavery. And before they were freed, that Moses went to the Pharaoh, and he said, hey, let God's people go. And Pharaoh got agitated at this, and he made their work harder. They were slaves to the Egyptians, and he made their work harder by increasing, they had to make these straw bricks, and he said, okay, well, I'm going to take away the straw. So now, not only do you have to make the straw bricks, you have to gather the straw, but I still want you to make the same amount. You still have to meet your quota. And so it made it harder for them. So we're going to pick up right there with our scripture today in Exodus chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, and then we're going to jump into chapter 6, verse 1. So Rich, we put those up on the screen. All right, so we're picking up right after Pharaoh issues this decree. And then Moses returned to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you brought trouble upon these people? Is this why you sent me? Did you send me to bring trouble upon these people?" I mean, I'm sure they were okay with their work that they had to do, and now you've made it harder on them, God. "Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble upon these people, and you have not rescued your people at all." And then chapter 6, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh because of my mighty hand. He will let them go because of my mighty hand. He will drive them out of his country." So we're going to use that example again today for us, because we do the exact same thing that Moses did here. We go through the cultivating stage and we're like, okay, God, we're ready for the harvest. We went through this hard part, we're ready for the harvest. And Moses does the exact same thing. He's like, God, you told me to come free these people, and you made it harder. And that was the cultivating stage for them, because we see throughout the whole stage that maybe they need to be cultivated a little bit more, because they complained the whole time after they got out of slavery. There's one part where they were complaining about the manna that God was providing for them. And they're like, when we were in slavery, we had meat to eat, but you were in slavery. So I feel like they needed a little bit more cultivating. But we do this. We say, God, we went through this cultivating stage. It didn't feel good, so where's the harvest? We think we've made it through the hard part. Where's the harvest? And we forget that there's the other steps. So we're sowing, God's sowing the seed in us today. We can't skip the steps, because if there's no seed planted, then there's no harvest that's going to come about. So today now that we've went through the cultivating stage and we have went through that hard part, we want to make sure that the right seeds get planted for the right harvest. I was thinking of a movie. I don't know how many of you have seen Secondhand Lions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's that part wherever he plants his garden and then when it grows, it's all corn. He thought he was planting something different besides just corn. And then when it grows, he's just like, corn, 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 corn. The ones laughing have seen the movie. I can tell, because it's hilarious. But we want to make sure we get the right seeds planted. We don't want to get tricked like he did into planting a whole field of corn whenever we are not supposed to grow a whole field of corn. And a lot of times we get in a hurry. We think, okay, we went through the cultivating stage. Now where's the harvest? And we start trying to plant our own seeds. And I want to show you. I got a good visual for you today on what happens. We sit here and we think, okay, God, well, you did the cultivating, so now I want to take over and start planting some seeds, right? So we think, all right, I got me some love seeds right here. If you guys want to buy these after service, I'll see you back. I'll see you in there. But the love seeds. So we think, okay, God, we're going to start planting some love seeds, and we start putting them in here. And then, whenever we think that we were planting love seeds, since we're human and we mess up, well, someone slipped something else in here. It turns out when the harvest comes, that we weren't planting seeds of love. we were planting seeds of lust. And you're like, and then you're in trouble, because then you're like, oh, well, God, you cultivated, and then I stepped in and tried to plant some seeds, and now I'm not in the, now that's not what I intended. I thought I was planting love, and it turned out it was just lust. And then we try to plant our own blessing seeds. How funny is that, trying to plant your own blessing seeds? But we do that. We sit here and we go, okay, we're gonna plant some blessings. I use these because everybody's familiar with your emoticons, I'm guessing, on your phone, right? That might be a generational thing. But we start trying to plant our own blessings, and it turns out, those are just seeds of greed. Our harvest turns into greed. Whenever we try to plant our own blessing, it's really just greed. We got to let God plant the blessing in our life. If it's going to be a harvest of blessing, then it's got to come from God. It can't come from us, because that's of your own self. Now that's like if we, unknowingly we think we're trying to do something good, and we think we're trying to plant something, and then when it comes to the true harvest and it comes about in our true selves, and it's like, well, that's not what it was. But sometimes we're like the Israelites, and remember the golden calf, and they're worshiping the golden calf. Moses goes up to speak to God and get the 10 Commandments and all that good stuff. And the Israelites get a little restless, and they make a golden calf to worship. Well, if you read it, actually, it wasn't like they were making a golden calf to another god. They were making the golden calf for God, but God doesn't want you to worship idols. And so they wanted to worship God, they were just doing it in the wrong way. And we do the same thing too. Unknowingly, we mess up, and we plant seeds that bring about a pretty bad harvest. Let's say your coworker has done something that upsets you, right? And so you start planting little seeds of anger, right? And you start planting little seeds, and you think, okay, it's all right. It was just one day. I'm getting angry, but okay. But then the next day, a couple weeks later, maybe we get angry again, and we get even a little bit more furious because it's building, because they did something a couple weeks ago, and now they did something again, so we plant another seed. And then before we know it, whenever that harvest comes about, instead of just planting seeds of anger, we planted seeds of hate. And that's something that's a lot bigger, isn't it? When you change anger to hate, even though it's not a bigger word, it's a bigger problem, isn't it? Maybe we're sowing seeds of sadness or disappointment. And I know you can't truly affect what goes on to your life, but you can affect how you address those situations. Now, I know there's going to be sad situations in our life that that's life. But if we continue on this journey of sadness and disappointment, when the harvest comes about, it might be depression. It might turn into depression. So you say, well, how do I not plant these seeds? Well, it's pretty simple. Don't plant the seeds. Don't plant seeds. We're going to read John 15, verses 1 through 4. It goes on the screen. I am the true vine. Everybody say with me. And my Father is the gardener. My Father is the gardener. We're going to continue on, but we're going to come back to that because that's where our key point is. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Yes. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. And then verse 4, remain in me and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. And then we read verse 5 to begin with. Well, let's go back to verse 1. With God being the gardener. We let God do the cultivating stage, right? We let Him be the gardener then, and then we get impatient, we're ready for the harvest, and then all of a sudden we want to be the gardener in our lives. We want to plant the seeds. We're like, God, your time is just, I know we're supposed to trust in your time, but you are taking way too long with your time. It needs to be on my time. That's how we live today. Everything's on my time. Let me check my planner so I can schedule it around my time, around my events. Well, we have to trust God and let Him be the gardener in our lives. Let Him plant the true seed. Because whenever He plants a seed of love, whenever it's a harvest, it's going to be a bountiful harvest of love.
Yes, it is. Right.
He knows the thing about love, right? God knows about love. And when He plants a seed of blessing in your life, when that comes to harvest, you can bet that it is going to be the best blessing But when it gets to the harvest, you're going to enjoy that blessing.
Yes.
And it's not going to be a grateful blessing. We're not going to be holding that blessing to ourselves. Sometimes we do that. We try to hoard our blessings. It's going to be a blessing that's so bountiful that we're like, I can't contain all this. I need to share this blessing.
Oh, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
God's not going to sow seeds of anger in us.
No.
He's not going to sow seeds of sadness in you. He's going to sow seeds of joy and happiness, and peace, and forgiveness, and understanding when we have difficult people in our lives. I can't tell you that you're not going to have difficult people in your lives. We know that. That's just, we're going to have difficult people. I don't know why some people have to be difficult. They are. You just want to shake them, and you're like, why are you the way that you are? God loves you. And, all right, I'll get a little off point here. But, like, the Father is the gardener. Let's go to verse 2. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. He prunes you so that this is kind of even getting into maybe next week's, but He prunes you so that you will be even more fruitful. Let's say we did sow a seed of love. I'm not saying that you can't sow seeds. We are called to sow seeds to spread His word and His direction to people. As best, as long as we're trusting in Him to do the work through us, then you're called to sow seeds into other people's lives. But the seed of love that we sow isn't going to be as great as the seed of love that God sows. And because He's going to prune it and take care of it as it's growing to make sure it gets the best harvest He can out of that. So now that we're going to trust God to plant the seeds, we're going to talk about planting seeds correctly. Will you put the picture of the back of the seed packet up there? I don't know how many of you. Anybody garden? How many of you garden planted seeds? Raise Miss Gary. You a little bit?
Yeah.
A little bit. I just didn't know how many people have seen the back of a seed packet. But they have directions when you're planting the seed. There's already directions on planting the seed. The one thing that I find most interesting about this, that says full sun. So you can kind of think, okay, whenever a seed's planted, it needs to be in the fullness of the sun, like S-O-N, if you want something to take with you today. But what I want to focus on is, it says to plant the seed, I don't know if you can see it that well, but this one right here, the second one, it says 1 inch deep. You got to plant the seed 1 inch. Not all seeds are planted 1 inch deep. There's different variety, different depths that seeds need to be planted. So this is another reason why we need to trust God to plant the seed, because whenever we come and plant it, we might not be able to plant it deep enough into someone's soul. You might not be able to plant it deep enough into your own soil. You got to let God come in and make sure that it's at the right depth. Right. And the bigger the blessing, the deeper the seed might have to be planted. It might need to be real deep in the soil, which is you, to get all the nutrients that it can. And so the deeper it is, the longer it's going to take to sprout. So we just got to be patient and trust that God planted the seed correctly. If you see the map of the United States down there, it shows you where your state is, when you should plant this thing. What are we planting here? I don't even know what I'm planting here. I don't even know if it says on the back of there. We're planting something. But if we're planting whatever we're planting, we're supposed to be planting it in April through August. So that's when the planting and growing time is when that's supposed to. So we're going to trust that God also plants the right seed in the right season. We can't see what's ahead. We don't know what's to come. We can guess, we have our financial planning and the best that we can. We try to plan for the future, but we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen on November 8th. It's get all crazy up in here. But we don't know what's to come, so we have to trust God to plant the right seed because He knows what's going to come. He's going to plant the right seed that grows and produces the harvest at the right time. Well, you might try to get in a hurry and try to get this harvest ready, and then a frost might come. That's one of the things that's warned you. It says, make sure, a lot of seeds say, make sure you're clear that there's not going to be any more frost in the morning, any more freezes. Because then it ruins the seed. God's going to make sure that He's planting the seed correctly so that the harvest does not get ruined. That it doesn't just die out right at the beginning.
Right.
Why is the seeding process so important? Because if the seeding is not done right, if the sowing is not done right, then that cultivating stage that you went through, the tilling up, it can be wasted. All that hard work can be wasted. Me and Brandon tried to do a garden, was it last year? And we did a lot of tilling up. And it was hard work. And because Brandon's motto is go big or go home, and I let him mark out the garden size, and he went big.
And you went home.
Well, eventually. But we did all this work to till up the ground, right? And well, we did not continue on with the gardening, and now it was wasted. We did all that work for nothing, right? Basically, right, Brand? We did all that work for nothing. God does not want to look at you and be like, I did all that work for nothing. I did all that work for nothing. Don't let your cultivating be wasted. Don't let it be wasted. Let God continue to plant seeds in you and continue to garden you. And as Brother Steve kind of pointed out last week, that the cultivating stage never really quits. The cultivating stage, I kind of sent out a message the other day that the cultivating stage is the only one that is consistent through all the stages of gardening. You have to continually cultivate. You have to continually take care of the garden, or else the initial cultivating is wasted. And our last point for well, I got a couple more points. We're still got plenty of time. Some plants, and we look at seeds and we think, I left my seed packets back there, but we look at seeds as like little bitty, just little bitty things. Oh, it's all right. You guys know what seeds look like. I mean, they look different depending on the plant and the flower, whatever you're planting. They look different. But some plants, when you're doing a garden, they're already grown when you plant them, like tomato plants. Usually you plant a small tomato plant, and it's already grown a little bit, and then you plant it. Pepper plants. You're supposed to... Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if my grandma wants me to open those. I was going to show you a different seed. But pepper plants, you plant some seeds, some plants are already growing when they get planted in you. That's what I'm talking about. That you might not be the soil the seed sprouted in, but you can be the soil that helps continue to grow the plant. We're going to look at that as our church today. Like, the seed of growing the church physically, I'm going to say it really didn't sprout in you guys. God sprouted that in my heart a little bit. And I'm sure God has worked with you guys on that. But it's really the seed sprouted in me, but I can't be the only one that grows that plant. I need all of you guys to have that plant planted in your soil as well. So there might be something that you see going on, that God is doing. You don't want to plant weeds in your life that are growing and you say, hey, look at that weed. I want to plant it in my life. We don't want that. We don't want something that's not going to bear fruit. But we can see God doing something over here in this soil that sprouted in this soil. And if God wants to take that plant and plant it in your life, we can't be afraid to let something that's already sprouted in someone else's life be planted in our life. As long as it's, you got to trust God in those situations. You got to make sure that it is a God thing. Like I said, you don't want to just grab onto something that's growing and then it doesn't bear fruit. You want to make sure that it's a plant that's going to bear fruit. But we don't have to be the ones that initially the seed sprouted in. You can look at things. That's what I'm saying. Some people, they're afraid of God using them in certain ways. And that, we can't be afraid of God planting seeds in us and Him sprouting the harvest in us. But you might not have to be the one that the seed sprouted in. Maybe you're the one to come along and help grow the plant. Maybe you can bring some different nutrients to that plant. We can't be afraid to let something that's already growing be planted in us. One more thing, and then I'll close. When you say sowing, right, you can think of either sowing seeds or you can think of sowing clothes, right? And sowing clothes, this is the definition. I've been using definitions here a lot, but the definition of sowing is to make or repair, like sewing clothes, to make or repair with cloth. And I was thinking how that sewing definition can actually be used in our sewing, and to be illustrated with our sewing. That God is sowing a seed in you to make something in you, or to even repair something in you. We're going to get to the harvest stage, and I know everybody, that's the stage that everybody wants to be at. And we might be thinking, well, you're talking about harvest. What harvest are you talking about? Like, God might be wanting to bring about a harvest of repair in your life. So He might be sowing a seed of repair. You know, you go to church camp, and that's a sowing season. I know you think there might be a little bit of a harvest there, a harvest of praise and revival, but really, when you go to an event like that, that's a sowing season. He's giving you things. How many times? I know you guys have given testimony of how you thought, well, I'm not going to go to camp this year, but then you end up going, and you're like, God meant for me to be there because it strengthened me. It repaired you. He sowed a seed in you to bring about a harvest. He sowed a seed of maybe repair, or maybe to even just make something in you. That's what He's calling us to do today, is to let Him sow seeds that He can make something in us.
Right.
He's called us to be branches that produce fruit.
Exactly.
How many would raise their hand and say, well, I don't want to produce fruit. I want to be a branch. I want to be a branch that does not produce fruit. Nobody's going to raise their hand for that.
No, right.
No, we want to be branches that He prunes to produce fruit, to produce things for Him. We just got to be willing to let God be the gardener, to let Him plant the seeds in our life. He did the cultivating. Trust Him to do the seeding. Trust Him to finish out what He started in your life. Trust Him to make new things in your life. Maybe you need something new in your life. Trust Him to do that. Trust Him, maybe you're broken. Trust Him to sow seeds of repair in your life. Maybe you need a blessing in your life. Trust Him to sow the seed of blessing. Maybe you need a harvest of love. Trust Him to sow that seed of love.
Right.
I don't know your individual needs, but just trust God to sow the seeds in your life. Because the harvest is coming. We're going to get there. You're going to get there. I know He's going to bring out different parts in your life, different harvests. He can be He's God, so He can be bringing about 10 different harvests in your life, and He can be at different stages and at all 10 of them, you know? Just trust God to bring about the harvest that you need in your life. That's all you got to do. Like with my ministry and things. You know, I've been doing it for a little bit now, I think. I've got a little bit of experience under my belt. I know I'm just now becoming the head pastor of this church, but I've been preaching to you guys for quite a while. And I felt like, you know what, God, I felt like I was trying to hold on to like it was my ministry. And that's just, I guess, young ignorance. And, you know, as a young preacher, you're like, yeah, I'm going to take the world by storm. Woo! And then God's like, no, you're not. No, calm down. You're not going to take, no, He's like, I've already got the world. I don't need some young buck to take the world by storm. I've got it, take care of it. But, I don't know about you, but I just feel like my ministry, or, you know, just has gone to a new level because God has brought about a different harvest in my life. I've trusted Him to bring about this harvest. To bring about these messages. To bring about His word to you. That's really what I wanted to trust Him with. Is that I just wanted to be a vessel to share His word. That I just wanted to be used to share His word. And once I let go of that and trusted God to be the gardener in that, I feel like, you know what? God has given us some good word. God has given me some good word to share with you guys. God is continually working with me throughout the whole week. I said, you know, a couple weeks ago, I said, I decided, God's got to start having my best, and He needs to have your best. And sometimes our best is just to trust Him, to let Him work, to let Him be the gardener. So we're gonna close in prayer, and I just pray that you guys trust Him. That you trust Him to be the gardener. That you trust Him to bring about the harvest that you need in your life. You know your specific need. I don't know. I can kind of guess by what your life, certain situations that you're going through. But only you know your true heart and the true things that you're going through. Trust God to bring about that harvest. If it's repair, if you need repair in your life, trust Him. He's going to do it. If He needs to make something new in your life, trust Him to do it. So let's just pray that we're trusting in God to be the gardener. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank You this morning, Lord. I thank You for each and every one in here today, God. And I pray, Lord, that You have cultivated them, God. That You have gotten them ready for the seed, Lord, that You're going to sow into their lives, God. Just let them trust You to do it, Lord. We need to trust that You are the gardener, Lord, that You are going to prune us to make sure that we bring about the best harvest that we can, God, that You can bring about in us, God. I just pray, Lord, that we trust You to do that. Sometimes we just need to let go, God. We need to let go and let You work Your power, God, in us. We can only bring about worldly things and things that we understand, but Your knowledge is so much more, God. You can bring about things that we couldn't even think about in our lives. You can bring about repair in our lives. You can make something new in our lives if we need that today, God. I'm just trusting You to do that with my life. And I pray that they do the same. We just lift Your name up. We lift Your name up today, God. Thank You, Lord. Thank You, Jesus. I missed a point, or an example. But when I was talking about, a seed not sprouting in us, and not sprouting in us, and then we take the plant in our lives. I was going to use the example of Moses and Joshua. Moses brought them out of Egypt, but he didn't take them into the Promised Land. Joshua took them into the Promised Land. The seed sprouted with Moses, but the harvest came with Joshua. So that was just an example that I skipped over. Should have wrote it bigger on my paper. But next week we're going to continue. We're going to go into the actual gardening stage of the harvest, the steps of harvest. We're going to go into the gardening. We've been cultivating and we've sowed the seeds. So now we're not ready for the harvest yet. There's still the gardening stage of the harvest, the growing stage. So we're going to talk about that next week. So I encourage everyone to be here that can.